Let's start off with a deleted scene that was lost but has now been preserved. Eraserhead is a surreal nightmare masterpiece that is directed by David Lynch in his feature debut. The film was released in 1980 and saw numerous re-releases over the years, most recently being the Blu-ray release by the Criterion Collection. However, this particular lost scene relates to the first DVD restoration of Eraserhead entitled Eraserhead 2000. Funny enough, the background for the menu on the DVD contained a deleted scene that was never released before the DVD came out. In it, Henry, the main protagonist of the film, lightly kicks a wire that has a dead cat attached to it, and that's really it. It is worth mentioning that this is potentially not the entire full scene, however, this is just speculation. What's even more speculation is the dead cat itself. In an interview, David Lynch said that he dissected a dead cat that he got from a veterinarian and stored it in a jar of formaldehyde. Apparently, he did this to study the texture of the cat. I'm not really sure why he did this. David Lynch is a real strange man, I guess. But anyways, many have suspected the dead cat was used to create the baby creature in the film, as David Lynch reportedly blindfolded his projectionist in order to not have him figure out how the baby was made. In addition, the cast and crew signed release forms which prevented them from discussing the making of the baby creature. So it seems like the dead cat was used for this deleted scene. However, there is no definitive evidence that this is true, and the dead cat in the scene could be made of something else. Now with that out of the way, let's discuss the real lost deleted scene. On the DVD menu, there is an Easter egg which will give you a code. The code could have been used on davidlynch.com, however, only through 2001 to 2007, which is the reason this scene was never really properly preserved. If you entered this code in the phone booth on the site, you would get to see the scene.
You have dialed a working number.
The following is a scene from the shooting of Eraserhead. This scene is not in the final film. Henry was walking down his hall and a door was slightly open.
The scene is presented with a very brief introduction by David Lynch himself, and the scene contains Henry peeking into a room that is slightly open on his floor. Inside, we can see a man and a woman tied to a bed. Now, I cannot tell you if they are enjoying this or not. This is Eraserhead, by the way. But as Henry peeks more into the room, he can see a man getting ready to electrocute the couple on the bed. Henry is caught by the man, and Henry runs away as the man approaches. And that's really it. I'm not entirely sure what to think of this scene or where it would fit in the quote-unquote narrative of the film, but I do think it is cool and adds more to the film in terms of like the overall atmosphere and ambiguity. A very obscure fun fact though is the lady that is tied to the bed is Catherine E. Coulson, who famously played the log lady in Twin Peaks, David Lynch's show that he created with Mark Frost. She helped with the production of Eraserhead over the 4 years it took to make. Funny enough, during the shooting of Eraserhead, David remarked to her that he had an image of her holding a log, so that explains where the log lady character from Twin Peaks comes from. I don't know, I'm glad these scenes are properly preserved, but I wish more deleted scenes, if they ever existed, would have survived. So yeah, rest in peace David Lynch, you madman. I'm not going to explain the plot to this, as it's one of the most popular, disturbing films, and the fact that I already created an extensive video behind the controversy and history behind this film. In regards to lost media, the piranha scene is often brought up. The scene was never complete, however. The script of this scene can be found on the Blu-ray, which would have had a single Shamatari warrior injured in battle was to have his leg amputated by warriors of the Yamamomo tribe. The tribe would then tie the Shamatari warrior to a log and lower him into a piranha-infested waters, and he would be slowly eaten alive by the fish. The scene was attempted to be shot, however it was never completed because the piranhas were difficult to control and the underwater camera malfunctioned. 2 stills of the scene exist, however the footage that was shot is likely lost forever. On the Blu-ray, there is an Easter egg where Deodato, the director of the film, confirms the scene was never finished, though it is hard to understand what he says as the video is old and he has a very, very thick accent. Other lost media is the alternate clothes takes of the film. According to actor Carl York, they shot the gang SA scene multiple times, but also shot a take where all the actors were fully clothed. The reason was that this footage was going to be used in Middle Eastern markets. I could not find these versions of the film, nor could I find any evidence that these scenes ever existed, with the exception of Carl York's interview. So it seems to be lost media. If anyone knows any more information on these versions of the film, please let me know. Salo, or the 120 Days of Sodom, is a 1975 film about 4 fascists kidnapping multiple teens and taking them to a mansion where they would be tortured both physically and sexually over the course of 120 days. The film is based on the unfinished novel of Marquis de Sade and famously is the last film from Pier Pasolini because he was murdered before the film was released. I extensively covered this film, its history, controversy, and the murder of Pasolini in my first controversial movie video, although the audio in that video is not the best, so I apologize for that. On a side note, that video is getting more views recently. I wonder why. A film about fascists is getting more notoriety. Anyways, there's a great mystery as to the murder of Pasolini, but the main theory that the people that worked with Pasolini have agreed on was that Pasolini was going to pay a ransom as some of the film rolls from Salo were stolen. One of the writers, Sergio Citti, launched his own investigation and found an eyewitness that stated that Pasolini was taken by a group of men inside of a car when he was retrieving the reels. There was a teen that was charged for his murder, however, this is often disputed even by the teen, and there are many theories as to who killed Pasolini, which include the Italian mafia and the government itself. I'm not sure what were on these stolen reels, but they were never recovered. They could potentially be lost and deleted scenes from what I'm going to mention right now. To give proof that some of these lost scenes exist, there are some surviving set photos and stills that exist, and one where a girl is being electrocuted on an electric chair on the final killing scene is used for the Japanese poster. Obviously, I can't show this right now because, it's YouTube and it's kind of lame sometimes. But anyways, I'm just going to list these scenes off, but a fair warning that most of these lost scenes are from the ending where the teens are brutally murdered, so this is a fair warning. There is a scene where one of the daughters of the libertines are raped by one of the studs while the libertines watch. She is then whipped by the bishop and then killed in an electric chair. There's a scene where a victim named Sergio, who is branded, appears to sit on a low chair and then is shot. Another scene where a boy who got his eye cut out gets his other eye cut out and is strangled to death using a garrote. Another scene where male victims are killed by hanging. A scene where the Duke rapes a female victim and then she gets her nipple ripped off by 2 studs. Another of the daughters is raped by a stud and then hanged. Another of the daughters is raped by a stud and also raped by a once victim now turned guard, which then she is shot dead. The girl victim with the dead mother is killed by hanging. A really deprived scene where the bishop sticks pins inside a girl's anus. Maybe that should be lost. A scene where the girl who was caught having sex with another girl tries escaping the castle, is followed and killed by the libertines. This is a scene I wish was kept in a film, as she is never shown in the film after being caught, so you're left wondering what happened to her. So that's very unfortunate. Another scene where a girl is raped by the bishop. Interestingly, a scene where the banker libertine reads a poem is not present in the Criterion release of the film, but is present in the BFI release of the film. There was an article written by a researcher at Criterion, and she concluded that the scene was not in the best print of the film used by the Criterion release, but was present in the print used for the UK cut. No one knows why this scene is in the UK cut and not present in the print used for the Criterion release. So I guess the BFI is the full cut of the film, unless Pasolini or his editor did not want the scene in the final film, as it's not in the best print. There are 4 endings written, but were never used or filmed. This includes a scene where the 4 libertines discuss what they have done, laugh, and walk away. The Criterion Blu-ray has a documentary entitled The End of Salo, where they recreate this ending, but the actors weren't pretty terrible, so it's not really worth watching. There's a deleted scene that I cannot confirm exists beyond the script, but the cast and crew, including Pasolini, does a choreographed dance to a penguin in love that was meant to be the intro of the film. I'm not sure why he would incorporate this, but I'm assuming this was to break the fourth wall and bring some humor to the film before it goes, into full depravity. So yeah, I hope that eventually these lost scenes are found, as no one knows where the lost reels are, or the fact that there could be a print of the film with some of the missing footage still intact in it. Although it's worth mentioning that there are rumors that Pasolini destroyed some of the reels, so you know that'll be really unfortunate, but it seems likely, honestly. Finally, it's worth mentioning that Salo was the first film planned in a trilogy entitled The Trilogy of Death. The trilogy would serve as opposite to Pasolini's Trilogy of Life. For the second film, he planned to make a biographical film about the life of French child killer Gilles de Rais. Although it is often mentioned that Gilles de Rais could have been framed by the authorities for these child murders, I just think that's a pretty interesting fact, and I often wonder what that film could have been like. Although there is no information as to what the third film was going to be, or even if Pasolini knew what it would have been. Maybe someday someone will finish the trilogy. Anyways, that's all for this video. I love you. Please subscribe. I really need it.